This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. Tonight we're going to talk about some of the most exciting new theater in New York. In a few minutes we will have Alex Timbers and Aaron Lemon Strauss from the wonderful Freres Corbusier, now presenting a very merry unauthorized Scientology pageant. But first we're going to talk about Spring Awakening with the award-winning director Michael Mayer.
Hi. And
the librettist Stephen Sater. With me to interrogate them is my co-host Michael Riedel of the New York Post. Now, Stephen, you were the mind behind adapting this 1891 play about adolescent angst and bringing it to Broadway as a rock musical.
Yeah.
Why did you think this would work now, this musical about repressed sexuality in our era of wildly licentious sexuality?
Well, but we also live in an era where safe sex is, means abstinence, right? Politically.
Yep.
We really conceived this. We really began talking about this in the wake of the shootings at Columbine. And it was about the resonance the play had for these unheard cries of young people. And what struck me was that pop music, rock music, is the place that kids for generations have found an outlet from and an expression of that same anguish that Wiedekind's kids had no outlet for in their day. So it seemed like I had begun writing songs with Duncan. It seemed like a good marriage.
Duncan Sheik is the composer.
Duncan Sheik, yeah. And so it seemed like a good marriage of, material to what he had to do. And right away after Duncan and I talked about it, Michael and I had worked together before, but not in a couple of years. And I just could feel Michael in the material. It's, these things are instinctive. And so then I called Michael, and right away the three of us began work on it.
Now,
Michael, do I get my follow-up now?
No, I just want to...
No, it's time for my follow-up. No, it's time for my follow-up, Michael. By the new structure, it is time for my follow-up.
I just want to ask you, Michael, when he says, I felt Michael in the material. Now, this is a play about teenage sexuality, sadomasochism, Wedekind, who was a real radical of his time. How does this material, why does it appeal to you? Why are you in this material?
I think that, if I may speak for Stephen, I think that what he meant was that the play and the themes and the structure of the Wedekind play and the concept of taking that play and creating a musical out of it would be something
to a rock score.
And a punk rock musical.
That's something that would yank my chain.
Yeah.
And as it happens, I had probably a day or two prior to Stephen's calling me, been on the phone with Peter Manning, who was one of the producers of Sideman, who asked me what I would like to do next. And I said, I'd love to do a new version of Spring Awakening.
No kidding.
I'm not kidding.
Really?
And then
he said it immediately when I called him.
Wow.
He said, I can't believe you're saying this to me.
It was astonishing. So his intuition was dead on.
You're a master caster. I mean, we first met you when you did Sideman, where you just pulled together these wonderful people, and then Thoroughly Modern Millie, and you've assembled this group of wonderful young performers, but who have this crazy look of 1890 and yet are very, now, and one gets the feeling one had watching Rent, only I like this better than Rent, of, connecting with these young people and this force. So what did you go through to get these kids?
Well, it's been a real journey. We started working on the play about 8 years ago.
This is about 8 years?
1999.
Wow.
And what happened?
Those kids weren't born.
What happened was, some of
It was
them,
going to
just
be
about.
a millennial project, right? Because we were going to jump centuries. So that was the idea.
Right, and it took a while. And from the very first workshop reading that we did of part of the material, the stuff that had been written, which was at La Jolla Playhouse, we started with, actually we used some Rent kids. We found some kids who had done the national tour, some that were on the West Coast. So we brought them down, we read some of the material, then we went to Sundance, and we did it again, and cast a new group of people. And finally, we went to the Roundabout, which is where we were hoping to do the full production. We did 2 workshops there with 2 different casts. And we went to LA, we had tapes sent in from all over, we went on MySpace. And we went to Chicago. I mean, it's been a real
this is
journey.
interesting, though. This is a new way of casting Broadway shows for young people. MySpace.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is an interesting.
So what do he goes on MySpace and you just look at their pictures? That
You
they
go and you
post?
find
bands. You can listen to their music.
At some point along this journey that you've had, you had the inspired idea to bring in the choreographer Bill T. Jones, whose work is mostly known in the modern dance world.
Yeah, this is his first real musical.
Sensational, fresh choreography, which I hope gets recognized.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
His whole his whole artistic vision is so complete, and he is so passionate about it. To watch him work with the kids was just mind-boggling. And it was very cool the way we did it. We had a 3-week workshop, and at the end of that workshop, I brought him in to see the show. So I had staged everything, and whenever there was a big number that I thought he should do, I would basically give them a starting point and an ending point. And then he came in, and I said, okay, that's where I want you to attack.
What was so brilliant, though, he did, though, is he created a through line of movement, which added a layer of story to the show. I mean, I would think your friend Eric Bentley would jump
Who
right
translated most of Vatican's plays.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
he takes theme and turns it into theater in movement.
What I like so much about the show is watching it the other night. It's almost kind of an anti-musical in the sense that we have a conception of sort of classic old-style Broadway shows, and now we've gotten into sort of broken Broadway shows. And it picks up on the traditions of the musical theater, but it really is contemporary and much livelier than some of the stale kind of stuff that Broadway has these days. Was this deliberate on your part to push the musical in a fresher direction?
Absolutely. One of the things that we first talked about was that we didn't want to do this, to tell this story and have the characters turn to each other and in character burst into song like a Rodgers and Hammerstein show. We knew that we didn't want it to be sung through like Rent or Les Mis or something like that. We knew that the songs needed to function as interior monologues. And Duncan, I think, was really helpful in terms of pushing that, because he was really adamant that if we can make a narrative happen that is accompanied by songs, then his own comfort level as an artist would be really enhanced, because he always feels uncomfortable when it's that other version, sort of the old-fashioned musical
this is very
version.
new.
Yes, when they turn looking deeply into each other's eyes and then turn to the audience and sing. Which has its charms and its
wonderful.
Well, you get the little boys in the schoolroom, and then he pulls a microphone out of his suit and starts to sing "Life's a Bitch." It's fantastic.
Well, what you get in the end is a classic play and a concert.
Yes.
And of the same material, right? And I think that the things we felt, Duncan really wanted the music to be relevant to kids' lives today. He was adamant about it. And I really want, and we all really want, I mean, all these things, but I advocated for really having if we were going to do this play, we were going to do this play. You know what I mean? And we dramatically, radically altered this play, and the exigencies of turning it into a musical led us to create heroes' journeys and arcs and structures that don't begin to exist in Vatican.
How much of the original text did you use?
Well, it's the starting off place for everything.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, for example, when Stephen Spinella joined our cast,
Yes, right.
when we moved up to town.
Yeah.
And emailed me for my original translation, which is what we did when we first went out to La Jolla. I did a translation of the play.
Yourself.
Yeah, we went to the German and just did a translation. We started writing songs. That was our starting off point. So he called me, Stephen, and can I see the original versions of your translations of these scenes? Meanwhile, I'll buy the Edward Bond translation. Well, in each case of those 3 scenes, none of the scenes exist in the original material. I know Michael's work really well, and I've seen it for years, and I think, well, first of all, I think this is the best thing he's ever done, but I think that the work he did, I do.
And that's saying a lot.
No, I think it's spectacular.
Yeah,
but I also have to
correct.
say that the work he did, which is an idea of ours, and it's an idea, in fact, I fought for hard with Michael for a long time, that I felt it should be a consensual lovemaking. the end of the first act, rather than a rape.
Well, you said it was, you just earlier though, you said it was a rape, the rape.
No, in the original.
In the original
play, it's
a
a total rape. And
Yeah.
we wanted to tell a story about about what it means to awaken to your sexuality in a very different way, which we understand. And I just think, I have to say, the work Michael did on that scene, in every aspect, from lighting to sound to the set and the way they come up, and the moments between those two actors who are young people.
Well, it's got, I suppose, the first sexual
beautiful, yeah.
experience is it's got tenderness and brutality all mixed
And no
mixed in together.
lewdness. No lewdness.
Yeah.
That would be, I think that would be untrue to the characters that Stephen has written. You know, in adapting Wedekin's play, he's really created these characters. This Melchior is Stephen's Melchior. This Wendla is his Wendla. This Moritz is his Moritz. It's a true adaptation. It's not a translation at this point. And the lyrics that he's written are so poetic and evocative and delicate. And even though some of the songs are like The Bitch of Living or Totally Fucked, am I allowed to say that?
Yes.
We'll say totally
fucked,
bleeped.
Totally bleeped. They're rendered with a kind of amazing delicacy and sensitivity so that it never becomes prurient, which was really crucial, I think, for us. Because what we want to do is celebrate the sexuality of these young people and acknowledge the darkness inherent in sexuality.
Because it's so repressed.
Because of its repression, and
Yes.
because the nature of sex, it's hidden within us, too. When we first come of age sexually, we are strangers to ourselves. And that strangeness can sometimes engender very complicated, conflicting emotions. And some of them are very pleasurable, some of them are very dark, and they don't necessarily need to stay in the dark place, but until you acknowledge the darkness, it's very hard to move to the light.
Plus, it's such a fascinating window on a time, the 1890s in Germany, when the notion of teenagers didn't even exist, kind of young people in that transition, and that the culture so couldn't deal with sex at all. And you've written a very interesting historical play, albeit a rock musical historical play.
Very much so.
Yeah.
These kids, the kids who survived this play, grew up to become the parents of the Nazis. We don't talk about that in the show, but it's
very
present.
much there.
He says in his essay, when he's, a society wants to hammer away all that's not good. I mean, this comes right from Mein Kampf. That's what he's talking about.
What do you think? What do you think
fascinating.
the kids in your version will grow up to be?
Same.
Actors.
Well, certainly, I think they're all wildly talented and remarkably attractive. So I think
They'll be voting Republican.
No, they're going places. We've got
It's a
Michael
terrific show, Spring Awakening, at the Eugene O'Neill Theater, directed brilliantly by Michael Mayer.
Thank you.
And music, lyrics, and book by Stephen Sater, a terrific adaptation of the Wedekind original.
Thank you.
Thanks for being our guest tonight on Theater.
It's the bitch of living and getting what you get. Just the bitch of living and knowing this is it. God, is this it? This can't be it. Oh God, what a bitch.
It's time to celebrate. It's time to open up your mind. It's time to lift your voice. It's time to sing it to the skies. It's a happy day, and the flowers are in bloom. If you are not okay, we know you will be soon.
In just 3 years, Le Freres Corbusier has become the hottest young theater company in New York City, presenting very unconventional takes on, I would say, historical and metaphysical issues. Our guests are its artistic director, Alex Timbers, and its executive director, Aaron Lemon Strauss. Welcome to Theater Talk. And now, this season saw your Hell House, which is your staging of a fundamentalist Christian classic. And then last week I saw a very merry Scientology pageant. Both of these are about issues of faith. Are you just about debunking faiths which I assume are not your own, or is there a greater depth to what you're doing?
Well, I think it's to some extent coincidental that these two shows that we just had going on are about faith. But as you say, these are issues that are incredibly important in contemporary times, and those are the issues that we like to tackle. And that happens to be faith for these past two shows, but in the past it's been how cities are built or how technology interfaces with art. And we've done shows about all those sorts of contemporary issues. But certainly Scientology is an issue that's on the forefront of a lot of people's lips these days, as an evangelical Christianity has put itself on the forefront of everyone's lips.
And Alex, you should explain.
Wait, aren't you afraid the Scientologists are going to come after you? I mean,
They already have.
Oh, what did they
They're
do?
a frightening group of people.
We might hopefully be in the clear at this point.
What did
so
they
to
do?
speak.
How do they come after
Explain what
you?
you did in your production to know what they're coming after.
Absolutely. Well, the Hell House was sort of trying to be a non-ironic reproduction of a Christian evangelical sort of classic, as you said, a haunted house where it's, instead of ghosts and ghouls, it's didactic cautionary tales of cheerleaders getting abortions, gay men dying of AIDS. And you're supposed to sort of draw your own conclusions by it. We're recreating it for you to see. Scientology Pageant's sort of a little bit of a twist on it because it's a little bit more sort of spoofy and ironic.
Snarky, yeah.
Yeah, it's snarky. Yeah, I'll go there with you. The idea is it's a nativity pageant from the point of view of Scientologists celebrating the Church of Scientology and the life of L. Ron Hubbard in pageantry and song. And so going down that sort of nativity pageant idiom, we employ sort of colorful backdrops, sort of cardboard acting and cardboard set
Little
pieces.
kids, all little kids.
And all 8 to 12-year-old children. And doing deadpan acting and sort of just that seemed to be sort of with the show and sort of not understanding sort of certain elements. And the idea is also it's only using their own literature. So it's not stuff you get on the internet. It's stuff that the idea is creating it from the point of view of the Scientologists. This is what they would do if they do a holiday pageant and letting you draw your own conclusions. But it is a lot sort of funnier than the Hell House.
So when did they come after you?
What
Yeah.
have the Scientologists done?
Aaron's probably more sort of.
They're going to
active.
kidnap you and take you to that fancy townhouse next
That
to the
sounds-
Royalton Hotel.
That sounds great to me. I mean, I wouldn't mind being kidnapped to be there.
By Scientology.
Yeah, so they got wind of it during the show. I mean, just I think from a press release or something. And then the head of the New York Church of Scientology came by a rehearsal and said, you know, what's going on? And we said, well, you can't be at this rehearsal. There are kids here. And so then he sent a letter to us saying, it wasn't a threatening letter per se. It was just sort of laying out other things the Church of Scientology has done to other people who have said critical things about
Like
them.
what?
Like, you know, lawsuits.
Murder,
and
disappearance.
Right. Well, you can probably Google search Church of Scientology to see other things that they wouldn't, you know, claim credit for. But laying out lawsuits that they've, you know, entered into against other groups that have said negative things about them. And it didn't say, and you're next, but that was obviously the implication. Yeah. And so we gave that, we said, well, this letter seems sort of scary. So we gave that letter to the Times, and the Times wrote a little piece on it, and about how there's this young theater company that's doing a show with kids, and the Church of Scientology is coming after them. Isn't that terrible? And everyone started crying. And so, and then the church backed off because the church
Your
is nothing
Times
if
is always
not-
a good shield.
Yeah, the church is nothing if not media savvy. So they, I think they got the idea that young theater company doing a show with kids probably wasn't the best chum for their, you know.
But is that how it became a very, very unauthorized
That's exactly right.
Great
Scientology
question.
pageant?
Lawyers recommend it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when we did it in LA, they sort of stayed out of the sort of the media. They were a little smarter there, but they did call certain cast members' parents during Tech Week and was like, you know, it'd be really good for little Johnny's career in the theater and film if he didn't do the Scientology pageant.
No
and luckily,
kidding.
you know, we had understudies in preparation for that, but also luckily.
Did some of the parents withdraw the kids?
No, the parents were. They
were cool.
had fortitude.
now-
They have been explained exactly what had happened in New York, and that is, you know.
Now we know what Tom Cruise is up against. I have really feel sorry.
How do you explain it to these kids? I mean, they're what again, 8 to 12? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're directing the kids,
Right.
and I was over, you let me come to a rehearsal, which was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain the multi-levels of what's going on to the kids?
Well, they get it, which is kind of
Yeah,
amazing. You know, first off, the show isn't a hatchet job. It's not mean-spirited. It's And so they get that and they appreciate that. They also understand that this is a religion like Christianity or like Judaism, like a religion of their own, except this one believes in alien spacecrafts.
Yeah, religion of Looney Tunes.
Possibly, yeah.
I'm going to get hit with a Scientology lawsuit.
And so we explained that we're doing a show that uses their literature to explain what it is, and we allow people to decide if these people are Looney Tunes or not, and that the kids aren't doing anything mean-spirited. They're always interested if the Scientologists will come see it and if they won't. And I've told them that there's a chance they will, but they probably won't present them. They probably won't talk to the kids.
And let me say that the opinions of Michael Riedel are totally those of his own. But that being said,
he's a Scientologist
no, I
pod
just don't
person,
want
and you
that
let her
lawsuit.
into your rehearsal.
I don't want that lawsuit. But do you think any Scientologists have snuck in and?
Oh yeah, he said Reverend John Carmichael, the head of the East Coast operations, came inside. The guy who, by the way, he looks like sort of like William Dafoe. He's a menacing figure.
It's quite a body of belief as you lay it out. I must say, it's quite remarkable.
I'm interested in the aesthetic of this theater company, though, because with these two shows, and I haven't seen the other ones, but
Boozy.
do you
Warren Harding as a rock star?
generally take the texts of a group and just is this the aesthetic of the theater? You take their texts and you just put them up like that?
We do shows about historical figures generally, and we just happen to have done 2 shows about religion, back to back. But we try to look at them in sort of, we are interested in didactic theater and sort of educational theater, and so we try to flip things though in a way that makes them sort of more exciting and punk rocky by using negative argument and taking the opposite tact of how people view Warren G. Harding or how people view urban planning.
With Hell House, that was a work completely created under the auspices of Jerry Falwell, right?
Well, it was originally from Jerry Falwell. In the late
Yeah.
1970s, he created Hell Houses, and then Pastor Keenan Roberts
Yes.
is the modern day Messiah that has brought Hell House, that has commodified it and sent it out to the masses.
And he met with you and gave you the go-ahead. Right?
And he
Did he have any sense that this might be an ironic commentary on it?
We were very upfront with him from the beginning that he knew that we were not evangelicals. We weren't trying to
weren't true
convert
believers,
people.
yeah.
We weren't true believers. He knows that.
Dissipated theater people.
Right. I mean, we're theater people, right? I mean, we interact with all sorts of people that he probably wouldn't want us interacting with. But he knows that, and his thought is that the message will win out. That even if you're not a true believer, if you present the message sincerely and without winks and nods and isn't this crazy, that the message will win out, and that the depiction of an abortion right in front of you will lead you to Jesus. And that's his firm, sincere belief. And so
Sounds
my favorite
more
thing-
enlightened and easier to work with than the Scientologists.
well, there's something about that. I mean, evangelical Christianity, for whatever, I mean, we're not evangelicals, but evangelical Christianity is a sincere belief form. I mean, biblical literalism and the beliefs that underpin evangelicism are sincere beliefs in a way that Scientology's beliefs are really, they're more of a, we can scroll a disclaimer across the screen for you guys, but they're really more of a cult, and so the beliefs are really more about bringing people in and less about sincere expressions of faith.
My favorite scene in Hell House was that when they gave the girl drugs and raped her at the rave. That was,
Don't go to a rave,
Manny
Susan.
That was, well, I think
That
those days
was
are
their big
over.
opening number. It's interesting though. Keenan Roberts was thrilled with the production, as were we.
Yeah.
And it's going through on a tour the final night. I was with a group where about a third of them were actual evangelicals who loved the Hell House. About a third were sort of hipster girls from Williamsburg with big boots who were laughing wryly and shouting
in
things
my
back.
group, yeah.
And then there were another third that were on a sort of bachelorette party, and they were drunk and they were like laughing hysterically. And you have these 3 different groups who are having enjoying the show equally, but having completely different experiences of what they're seeing. It's
And
kind of
then you
exciting.
ended the thing, and everybody had punch, and you had a rock band. Fabulous, fabulous.
Okay.
Tell us your next show. It's Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson. Now,
Yeah.
what is that?
It's a show about it's an emo rock musical about
Oh,
ancient-
I'm an old guy. What's an emo rock? What
It's
is
like
emo rock?
It's a certain type of rock music, rock genre, where it's mostly sort of men who are 27 singing about the girl in high school that broke their heart. It's incredibly sincere to the point of almost feeling ironic. The emo comes from the word emotional hardcore.
Oh.
So we're sort of looking at Andrew Jackson, who used to bleed himself and all those sort of elements, folding that in with the Trail of Tears and sort of the rise of populism. It sounds heady, but it's also very fun.
Sounds good. That sounds good. So right now, the very merry Unauthorized Scientology Pageant is playing downtown at the New Theater Workshop Annex. What are the dates?
It's now through January 7th.
Fabulous. So
And get your tickets at
a more
telecharge.com.
get tickets where?
Tickets at telecharge.com.
Very good. A more compelling holiday story I cannot imagine.
And for you big emo rock fans out there, don't miss, what's it called again?
Bloody Andrew Jackson.
Bloody Andrew Jackson. All right, thanks guys for being our guest today.
Thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
It's a happy day.